Uncle Todd and Sonny here, and this week's review is for a little flick with another great title, Teenagers from Outer Space. Uh, Fans of Mystery Science Theater will know that this was one of a very popular episode they did. It had the great joke, aren't all teenagers from outer space? Of course they are. This was actually the cheapest film Warner Brothers ever released. They didn't make it, they just released it. Guess they were trying to cash in on that popular teen sci-fi fad of the 50s that AIP and some of the other lower budgeted companies were doing. Uh, Pretty good cast. We have King Moody in his screen debut. He was a popular character actor, did a lot of TV work and film work. You might have seen him on Man from Uncle, Dragnet, the color version, uh, Little House on the Prairie, Chips, or Night Court. He appeared on all those shows. But his main claim to fame was his recurring character on Get Smart. Uh, Bernie Capel played Siegfried, the head of Chaos, the mortal enemy of Don Adams, Maxwell Smart. And Moody played Starker. Or is it Starker? And he would always do or say something really stupid. And this gave the only catchphrase to come from a villain on that show. Everything else came from Don Adams. Would you believe? Sorry about that. But here, Shocker would say something stupid, or he would do something extremely stupid, and Siegfried would always go, Starker, this is chaos. We don't do that here. uh, Coincidentally, we have Dawn Bender in her final film appearance. She was a child actress, having been in Keeper of the Bones, Confession, and A Song to Remember, and then transitioned into a teen actress in like Island in the Sky, Glass Ships, and The Actress. And she never quite made that transition to adult film star. Not that kind of adult. uh, Although, in Hollywood fashion, by this point she was on her third marriage. The other major name here is Harvey B. Dunn. Now, if you're fans of Ed Wood, he'd be very recognizable. He played the original Inspector Clay in Bride of the Monster, where he did a lot of weird stuff, antics and stuff with a trained bird. That's because his main source of income was as a children's party performer with trained birds. He also appeared in Wood's Night of the Ghouls and The Sinister Urge. Uh, Other than that, most of his screen appearances were like bit parts or as background extras. He popped up in the Humphrey Bogart movie Sabrina, as well as the musical My Fair Lady and James Cagney's western Last of the Bad Men. Okay, this is made by Thomas Graff as a vehicle, starring vehicle for his boyfriend, David Love, not real name. But it never really shot off their either one's career, and unfortunately, Graff reappeared later in the 60s, proclaiming himself Jesus Christ II. But on to the film. We open with a pretty effective shot of a flying saucer landing. kind of like the way it kind of augers itself into the ground, which helps explain the rather tiny ship we see. It's not bad animation. Well, the first alien pops out, and we're quick to find out these are not benevolent visitors. I can't believe they killed the dog.
Is only mostly dead.
No, I'm pretty sure it's all dead. Thanks anyway, Miracle Max. Well, taking off his helmet, he reveals he looks very human, as does the rest of the crew that comes out. And they're all setting up equipment and reading devices and everything. Turns out they have these very dangerous animals that they use for food called gargans. And they're looking for a suitable planet to raise them where they won't cause them any problems because they're rather nasty. And that's when Derek, our main alien character, discovers the tag on the bones of the dog and realizes there are sentient people that live here.
Hey, Captain. I have found evidence of intelligent beings on this planet.
Of what concern are foreign beings?
Of none to you, Thor. Just as you were so unconcerned when you destroyed the small creature.
Whew. Those are some pretty old-looking teenagers. Typical for the time. Very rarely did you have actual teenagers playing teenagers. A lot of times they were in their 30s. A trope that continued well into late 70s. I think Fast Times at Ridgemont High was one of the first to cast actual 18 and 19-year-olds to play high school students in a film. I could be wrong, but I think my memory's good on that one. Anyways, turns out these aliens come from a society where they don't know who their parents are. They're raised in batches, as it were, and they don't need such meaningless things like empathy, affection, any emotions, really. But Derek's been reading this book, and, well, it's given him some problematic thoughts and emotions. And he holds them at gunpoint, demanding that they call back to their head base, tell them the planet's not suitable, and they'll find somewhere else that's uninhabited. But they quickly defeat him and prepare to take him back to stand judgment for his rebellion. But first they're going to test the Gargan.
The atmosphere here tested above minimum, but the Gargan species cannot live due to excessive nitrogenic gas compounds emitted in our preliminary diagnosis.
Well, looks like Derek outed himself for no reason. In a manner of speaking. They'll have to find another place, but Derek's going to have to be taken back to their home planet in chains. Probably be terminated. The leader of the group, King Moody, as if you didn't recognize that deep soreness voice, goes in to radio this. And at that point, Derek makes his break.
He is escaping!
Go for!
That was a close one. Wonder why Thor was prevented from getting rid of Derek.
How did he get free?
He escaped from Saul. I could have stopped him.
Derek is to be brought back alive. He is the son of our leader.
I'm shocked to find...
It has revived.
It flourishes. The excessive nitrogenic gas compound shocked its system. Now it thrives on the very same compounds.
Sure. If it works in Star Trek, why not here? Anyways, they take the Gargan, that lobster thing, and they chain it up with expendable bands in a nearby cave where the elements will cause it to grow gradually so that the expanding shackles can keep it in check. Of course, if it got some other source of food, and ate something, it might grow bigger quicker. But this is a deserted area. That's not bound to happen.
Could be.
Anyway, the captain reports Derek's running away and the Gargan reviving back to the Supreme Leader, who details that they will leave one person behind to track down Derek and bring him back, because, as the son of the leader, he will be the next leader. They're going to pardon him. And meanwhile, they'll go get the rest of the Gargans and bring them to the Earth. Thor volunteers, having listened in to Little Snake. And as soon as it's daylight, he heads off after. Now, Derek, after exploring some of the town, finds a very helpful gas station attendant who is able to read the strange markings on this piece of metal Derek has, and directs him to a particular house where he meets a charming lady and her grandpa.
Well, come on in. I'm Betty Morgan, and this is my grandfather.
It seems her brother has gone off to college and they have a room for rent, which is why they thought Derek showed up. And they show him the room, which he does like.
Derek, I was just talking to Grandpa, and, well, if you don't have the rent money right away, that could wait until he gets a job, couldn't it, Grandpa?
Why, sure. That's all right with me, Betty.
That's very accommodating. Wonder what else they're accommodating about.
I mean, my uniform is all I have.
Gosh, you've got to have more than that. Bud left some of his clothes in the closet, Grandpa. Couldn't Derek use some of them?
Of course, my dear. Bud wouldn't mind a bit, I'm sure.
Inconceivable!
Okay. There's accommodating and then there's a little bizarreness here. Anyways, her boyfriend Joe shows up and he's got to cancel on the swim party at her friend's house. Reports of flying saucers, and he's the only reporter in town apparently, and he has to cancel and go interview people. Well, since Derek's new in town, maybe he'd like to go swimming. So, borrowing Gramps' car, they head over. Meanwhile, Thor's gotten picked up by a driver who accommodatingly shows him how a car works. And then he runs into another bit of luck at the gas station, the very same one Derek had been at.
Anyway, mister, a convention or something?
What?
For those clothes you're wearing. I talked to a guy this morning who was wearing the same kind of outfit.
Maybe the guy you're looking for, huh?
You spoke to him? What did he tell you? Where did he go?
Whoa, okay, calm down there, Thor. Getting a little aggressive. Actually, he gets very aggressive once against the information he needed. He takes care of the driver and his gas station attendant and then drives off in the car. Meanwhile, at the pool party, which only seems to be those two and her friend, Derek has a bit of a mishap.
What was that? Don't worry, I'll get it.
It is what I wanted to tell you about. The reason I came to your place when I did not know where else to go.
Heck, I thought it was a 50-cent piece at least.
Oh, cat's out of the bag now. Well, he explains that he found it on a dead animal, and she insists on being taken to where. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. And then they head out. Meanwhile, Thor has shown up at her house, and Gramps very conveniently tells him where they've gone and how to get there. Meanwhile, they get to the place, and all she sees is a pile of bones. That can't be Sparky. And he starts to explain, what do they call their weapon again?
You are not familiar with the focusing disintegrator ray?
The what?
It projects an isolated beam which separates the molecules of living material in chain reaction.
Huh. Yeah. That thing. She assumes this was some kind of invention he was working on with a friend, and that they attacked him. Well, he's going to need someone with a little more scientific knowledge to deal with these things. And Betty suggests a professor at the university. So they head home to change. She heads up. He takes her home so she can change. Meanwhile, Thor's arrived at Alice's, and he's not quite as charming as Derek was.
You will call no one. You will do as I say.
That's what you think, mister.
I said you will call no one.
Okay, he's getting a little trigger happy now. Anyways, Sally changes. Gramps asleep. And she leaves a note of where they're gone. Then they head to the university. Joe calls Gramps to let him know he's covering a murder now. Although how it's a murder when they just have some bones, it doesn't matter. Anyway, Gramps finds the notes after he's got off the phone, and Thor shows up. So he tells them where they've gone. Now, when they get there, the professor's not in his office, so they go to wait outside. And then they see that his car is there, so he must have just arrived. So they head back. And unfortunately, they discover that Thor beat them to it.
Oh, Derek.
Okay, at this point, Derek realizes he's being hunted. He assumed they went away. For some reason, they've stayed. So, he asks Betty where they can go, get protection. Well, the police, of course. So, they make a phone call to the police to let them know about this. And then Betty calls her grandpa to let him know. Fortunately, Grandpa isn't quite fast enough, and Thor takes him hostage and knows where they're heading, which is when we get a pretty exciting sequence. took out quite a few there. But he got hit. But he gets away. Then during the search, he takes Betty and Derek hostage and forces them to take him to a doctor. Where, while the bullets are being removed, he informs Derek of his status as the leader's son. But Derek doesn't understand why Thor would then try to kill him.
Your life or death was put in my hands. A traitor does not deserve to be our next leader.
The only reason you do not fire now is to force attention to your wounds. When that is done...
Proceed!
Yeah. Well, Doctor probably figured that out himself. Anyways, he fixes it so that they can get away. And Thor kind of stumbles around delirious. You see, if he doesn't get proper medical attention, he's kind of helpless. They run away. And fortunately, his nurse was showing up. And when he tries to call, he can't get through because she showed up, patched up his wounds, and gave him an injection, which brought him around, and he took her hostage and is taking her back out to where the ship landed, which just happens to be where Joe and a police officer are investigating. And the police officer decides, hey, I want to look in that cave.
Bring your flash bulbs up here. This tunnel is black as pitch.
Okay, I'll be right up.
Oh, I think he's a goner. Luckily, Joe doesn't go into the cave because at that point Thor shows up, and when he tries to shoot him, the nurse prevents him. And then we get into a bit of a chase between Joe and Thor. Now that was a good car crash. Well, he's taken to the police hospital. But the news of the monster, which is now on the loose, makes Derek realize that's why Thor was coming after him. The Gargans can survive, and there'll be more coming. They need a weapon to defeat them. Thor's gun, it was not recovered, so they go out to look for it. And while they're searching, Betty slips and falls, and we get our romantic scene of the film. What? No. This is the 50s. They didn't do that. Not until properly married. Anyway, the moon comes out, and they're able to search for the gun when the Gargan attacks. Luckily, Derek finds it, but there is a slight problem.
Shoot it, Derek! Shoot it!
It won't work! Run! Go start the motor! Hurry!
Gosh, they're being menaced by a giant silhouette. Now, the gun doesn't work, but that rock seemed to take care of it just fine. For the moment. Anyways, Derek finds that the power source has been too heavily damaged. They'll need a new power source. Meanwhile, we get a montage of the Gargan laying waste, or I should say being superimposed over shots, and headlines of the search parties being attacked, and then Derek realizes electricity. That might just be enough power. So he goes out with Betty, and they cut some power lines after she gets them to turn the power off and then turn it back on so that he can use it. Will it work? Only if there's enough power, hopefully.
More circuits, but it may blow up the line.
Try anything. It's our only chance.
Oh, didn't think they were going to make it there, but luckily now they have a weapon and everyone can be safe.
You can turn the weapon over to the scientists now.
It is too late.
You mean they're coming? Already?
Your people are here for you. I must leave.
Gosh, if only they could have done it sooner. Well, Derek taking Betty's car, and she has to go back. Gramps and Joe go back to her house where Derek has changed into his uniform, and using the gun, which doesn't work, forces Joe to take him somewhere. Now, Betty tries to protest, wanting to tell Joe that the gun doesn't work, but Derek says, please, I remember my promise. He promised he would never leave the earth. Trust him. Then he has Joe take him to where Thor is, where we get a less than thrilling jailbreak.
Do not move. I will take the prisoner. Get their guns. Hand them to me.
Wow. Heart pounding. Anyways, they all head out to the landing spot. Betty got there ahead of them, she and Grandpa. She knew that's where they were going. And they see the ship land. And Derek meets his father.
I was most disappointed to learn that you had deserted. I came this trip hoping I would find you had returned.
Has what I have done not disqualified me? Am I still to...
You are back. That is all that matters.
Seems to have some fatherly concern, although he does want Derek to help them track down all the people that had access to those books. And then we get some very interesting information about the political aspects of the planet.
Will not the government structure collapse in your absence?
We will return immediately, as soon as the Gargans are unloaded from the fleet of ships. The people are unaware that I am gone.
Yes, we must leave quickly. If your absence were discovered, it would likely spark the beginning of a revolution.
That's interesting. But I'm sure Derek has no way he can use that information to save the Earth.
Could be.
But he asks his father for a favor to be able to lead the ships. They're on a beam. They have to follow him. They need to be guided over radio. Why, sure, since you've come back and you've bided the airs of your ways, go right ahead. And then he locks himself in the ship.
Pattern to minus 0.08. Increase speed.
Open this hatch at once. The ships seem to be converging and increasing their speed. They cannot land.
He has not planned to have them land, but crash! They're coming right at us!
Too late.
Hold course steady.
That was a disappointing explosion. Actually, it was footage of a volcano erupting. So, Derek sacrificed himself. And we end the film. Betty, Gramps, and Joe managed to save themselves by running into the cave. And we end with a replay of Derek's promise to Betty.
I shall make the earth my home, and I shall never, never leave it.
Tearful ending. Yeah, Betty, Grant, and Joe, they kind of look off into the sunset at the end. If the score of this film in the clip sounds a little familiar, it was the same score that George Romero used for Night of the Living Dead, although it was reworked in that film. So, but yeah, you can hear some of the cues and oh yeah, okay. This is a goofy film, but it's hard to like actually hate it. I know some people would say it's a boring slog, but there's just so much earnestness in it, especially in some of the performances. If they sound odd, in a reverse of shooting the film silent and then adding dialogue and sound effects after, they did the reverse. Everybody recorded their dialogue first and then mimed it when they filmed. Why? I don't know. It's a little weird. But everything about this film's a little weird. But as I said, there's an earnestness to it, and it has an interesting structure where the first half is a big chase scene. You know, you've got Thor chasing Derek. He's here, there. And then when they run out of steam on that, then they introduce the monster for a big climactic second act. And of course, the third act is the coming of the father and the blowing up of the fleet. So, you know, not bad structurally. Of course, it's low budget shows. The fact that they only had one skeleton and they reused it. And of course, it was wired together. Otherwise, just been bones falling over and scattering. But an actual skeleton, they got it from a lab. And they didn't use a lot of sets. Although I do like the fact that the beard on the father was so obviously taped on, because it did not look real at all. And there's some weird line readings, like this one from the nurse.
He's a murderer. He held hostages at gunpoint to force me to remove bullets. We were fortunate in escaping. You must get out of there.
A murderer?
Or the university secretary.
Oh, it's some kind of foolish joke. I'm not going to keep a job where this sort of thing goes on.
But a lot of these weren't real actors, or trained actors, I should say. Very amateurish. And of course, the Gargan, the big silhouette of the lobster. They didn't have the budget to make one, so they just kind of projected it like that. But all in all, I mean, actually, the one actress I'm rather surprised about is Dawn Bender. She's a professional, and yet she gives such a odd performance with her dialogue and then the way she says her lines. And I mean, David Love, I can understand, again, not a really well trained actor, but the director gives a better performance as Joe, the newsman. Very Jimmy Olsen-ish in that performance. But and of course, Harvey B. Dunn, he's just a delight. Always so fun to watch. If you're an Ed Wood fan, you've seen his performances, and he's always great, especially in Bride of the Monster. He steals that movie from everyone but Lugosi. Yeah, it's a hard movie to recommend, but I can't put it down. It's too fun. It's one of those so bad it's good films, you know, like Plan 9, or No, I wouldn't say Robot Monster. That one's a tough one to slog through. Despite Stephen King's admiration for the goofiness of it. But yeah, fun little movie. Not the greatest, but certainly not the worst. And as I said before, there's an earnestness about it. They so wanted to make a good movie, and they gave it their best shot. They're just defeated by certain lack of talent and budget. You know. But hey, at least they tried, and that's more than a lot of people can say. Well, please stay after the credits for my favorite scene. And as always, please hit like, share, and subscribe.
Captain should have let me kill you when I had a chance.
And why didn't he? I saw him stop you when you fired at me.
Because he just learned that you were the son of our leader.